Hey guys, welcome to the 16th Levitum Knot. Today, vroom vroom, Vishnu is going to give the beginner's guide to F1.
Hey all, so let's start off with this. So today I'll give you a brief introduction about Formula One racing, the governing bodies, and what goes behind the scenes during a race, and some fun facts about the different components involved, the cars, the drivers, etc. Uh, I've been following F1 since my uh, early teens, and even now even till like recent years, till last year, I was like following it down to the last race. This year, I've been a little off, but in general, it's a very fun and exciting sport that I like to follow, especially because of the involvement of technology along with the men and the teams that are involved. And of course, to start off by telling you that, as everyone probably knows, Formula One as the highest level of single-seat automotive racing that's out there. So there are different categories of racing, as you know. So there are rallies, there are different world championships that happen. There are different car classes in which races are held. So Formula One is the highest level of single-seat automotive racing. Uh, as Yeah, and as far as Formula One goes, it's an internationally recognized world championship, and the FIA is the governing body for all international world class races that happen. And the Formula One group, owned by the Group of companies, runs this particular sport, and the FIA has been there since 1904 and has been recently, uh, approved by the International Olympic Committee as one of the sports, along with the other sports that happen. So till now it wasn't, and recently it has been recognized. And the Formula One in that is the most, what do you say, the most exciting and the most popular one that's out there.
So Vishnu, this means that Formula One will become into the Olympics.
Not necessarily, but definitely it was always considered as a private affair, like what do you call, something of a private circus show kind of a thing, like the World Wrestling Federation or something like that. But now it's been fully acclaimed as a proper sport. So there are no plans declared as of now whether it will be included as part of Olympics or something like that. But the it's one of the games as we call it. So it's a sport. So so Formula One Championship, as such, it's an annual event and it's run across many race events that happen. So a typical season for a Formula One race, for a Formula One Championship, is between March and November every year. That's been happening since 1950s, since the formation of the Formula One group. And then this year in particular, every year there are a set of tracks that are designated for racing. And over the years, in the recent past, the tracks have increased from a typical 13th to this year's 19 races. This is the most hectic racing years in the racing calendar years in their history. There are 19 tracks, and all these 19 races happen in between March and November. So some months average 3 races, and given the, the logistics involved in moving around the entire Formula One setup from one location to the other, it's a mammoth task. And uh, this year, there are 11 teams that are participating, and each so the FIA has a guideline like a maximum of 2 cars per team at a given time. So that means they may own 3 or 4 cars, so they may choose to, but they're only allowed to race 2 at a time. So I think this year one of the teams has raced 3 separate cars at separate instances, but in a given race, there are only two allowed. So 11 teams, the two cars gives you 22 drivers who compete in these championships. In terms of the outcome of the championship, it's a point-based system, as most sports are. In F1 in particular, there are two separate World Championship points counting tally that happens. One is for the drivers and one is for the constructors. So drivers tally is for individual driver performances, and the constructors goes as a team performance. That means since you have two drivers on the track, the points accumulated by the drivers based on their driving positions gets accumulated to the constructors as well. So in a given racing year, you may have a driver winner from a particular team, but the overall constructors winner may be someone different who would have performed overall well. And that's quite common. It's happened over the years. So the points awarded are for the top 10 positions. So the points is like, as is given here, it's 25, 18, 15, 12, and 10 for the first five, and then 8, 6, 4, 2, 1 for the next five. Over the years, this has also changed. I think 3 or 4 years ago, this gap wasn't so prominent because the gaps were like with difference of 2 to 3 points at the top level. Here you can see a big gap. That's 25 to 18. What this meant is like what this particular point system is represented here signifies that the person with the most number of first position wins, or the second or the third. Basically, they're called the podium wins. The first top three drivers are awarded after every race. So this top three position gets the maximum number of points. And if on an average you finish first, second, or third, at the end of the championship, you are obviously declared the champion. So earlier years the gap was very less. So if it so happened that the first if a particular driver performed very well in the first 5-6 races and then happened to lose out in between and then again come back, for him to catch up again would have been difficult. But with this particular system, it's much more advantageous to the person who performs first. Basically, he performs better in the top three positions.
Yeah, Vishnu, if I'm not wrong, it was part of it was also to encourage a stronger fight for first podium finish on every race, right? Because drivers were no longer satisfied with second and third because otherwise.
Yeah, they're not considered. Basically, it doesn't count at all.
Yeah,
that's true. And also this year, I think with Going Green initiative that FI has undertaken there, over the last 2-3 years, they have introduced new systems and new technology and guidelines where they have trimmed down the engine specifications. They used to be really big and large and very powerful in light of reducing the overall cost of running the F1 as well as environmental effects of fuel consumption and lubricants and all that. They have kind of reduced the engine spec, which a lot of people argue have reduced the competitiveness of the cars overall with the loudness of the engine going down, etc., etc. A lot of technical things with the cars. So this year, I think this year's last race is supposed to be a double point race, in the sense the final race means you double the points that you have. So this has never happened before. This is the first year they've introduced. They've introduced it in light of a particular, because of this, the car specs being trimmed down and all that. It brings some excitement back to viewers and spectators. Okay, going ahead. So this is a typical Formula One car. So the Formula One cars are of a particular, a very peculiar shape and design. They are so because of the very aerodynamic nature they're supposed to be made of, and the whole design is an inverted aircraft wings design basically. So the aircraft wing, plane's wing usually provides lift. This particular design provides a similar lift effect, but in the opposite direction, called the down force. So it makes sure the car is almost glued to the surface when they're moving really fast, and the grip gives better handling while around the corners and all. So That's the shape of the car. And the FI guidelines change over the years, tweaking the certain aspects. So this year's major ones were the one at the back and the nose fin in the front. So you can see that clear distinction between last year's and this year's car. So this year in particular, the nose region of the car has been given a free run. Pretty much almost every other car is sporting a slightly different design, although within specs based on size and weight and all that. But in terms of the look and feel, in terms of design, it's very different. So every year they allow certain variations and something coming into the sport, which keeps it exciting as well as it's interesting because most of these innovations and findings from the racetracks, they actually bring it back to everyday cars. There are several systems that are available in normal day-to-day cars that we use that have originally originated from Formula One. Right. So some fun fact questions. So I'll read them out and basically in the next slide I'll give the answers, but guess can guess if you want. So how many components are there on a car? Keep in mind a car when it goes into the race has to be stripped down pretty much down to the last bit and then built back up for the next race. Any ideas? Any guesses?
So when you say components, you mean every individual component?
Yeah. A rough idea.
That's a hard one.
10,000.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone?
Nah,
I don't know, man.
Who knows?
in more than 10,000.
I'm guessing it's actually more than 10,000.
Okay. Alright, how fast does it go? How fast does the car go?
I think the current ones can top out at what, 300 kilometers an hour. But other than that, yeah, not sure. That was a few years ago at least. I don't know.
I guess 330 is Mach 1, right? So,
Yeah.
Alright.
so it's less than Mach 1.
Alright. 0 to 160 kilometers per hour and then back to 0. So this would be like a straight run at the first corner, basically. How much time does it take? 0 to 160 and back to 0.
I'd say 4 seconds.
Okay. How fast can the pit crew change the tires? So
5
this is
seconds.
assuming the car is stationary.
5 to 6 seconds.
Okay. What temperature do the brakes work or take effect? So basically, when a car is cold, especially Formula One, and with all the stringent guidelines, the car actually comes to life because, as we all know, heat expands components, right? So at a particular heat level, only most things work fine. So a car cannot, like we start our cars, these cars cannot be started just like that. So they need to be conditioned a little before the race so that they get up to temperature and all that. Even after that, it needs to be at a certain temperature for it to actually take any effect at all. Any guesses?
Over 200 degrees.
Alright, let's look at the answers. So how many components are there on each car? 80,000 components.
Hey,
How
damn, okay then. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so this gearbox and the steering system alone is close to 10 kg.
That's pretty cool.
How fast can it actually go is 257 miles per hour. That's over 400 kilometers per hour if you give it a straight run.
Pretty impressive.
0 to 160, you're right, 4 seconds. That's a lot a driver has to undergo.
Yeah, that's ridiculously fast. I mean,
Yeah.
G-forces on here.
How fast can a pit crew change tires is under 3 seconds. So you can pretty much count the 3 actions: taking off the tire, putting the tire back on, then screwing it back. What temperature do the brakes take effect? At 500 degrees centigrade. So pretty much when the driver starts off in their warm-up lap, they have no brakes. They're just like controlling it with speed, and they go at slow speed and increasing speed, try to brake hard, and then around when they're finished with the first lap, they're almost up to 500 degrees. In the first to second lap of the race, they're fully on.
And you can see at the end of the race, the brakes are glowing red.
They're made of carbon fibers. Okay.
I didn't actually get the last one. What's the last one referring to?
The last brakes. So your car has wheels and they have brakes on, right? The brake mechanism. So they need to have enough heat in them before they start gripping.
So the brake temperature is the brake disc temperature is 500 degrees centigrade.
That's okay. You know what? On the slide, it looked like minus 500 to me. So I was just no, minus. Okay.
I think the calls went down.
I was wondering why minus.
No, it's fine. But right, so this is a typical steering wheel that a driver has to use while he's driving at those breakneck speeds, and each and every button actually does something. So they have an entire manual of what it does. But in general, basically, you can see most of the things which are quite evident, like right and bang in the middle. You can see it says 7 gears, 308 kilometers per hour. So those are two obvious ones. The one indicates how what gear is on and how fast it's going. Then there are on the left side you see a red one that says brake. Then you have two paddles on the bottom left and bottom right in that gap that you see, right, the black wing kind of things. Those are the gear change levers. So those things have now come onto normal cars in Europe, in the US. So that's some of the advancements that have come on. And they do all kinds of minor adjustments while in the race to their different aspects of their car, like the traction and your balance of brakes, all those things they can do. And once they set those things in, they press this was button called acknowledgement, ACK, on the left, which kind of sets the setting in. So all this they tend to do even without looking while driving. So they need to by heart a lot of things. Two main things that they by heart is, one is this, it comes second nature, that is which buttons are where and how many presses to get to a particular second. The other one they by heart is the track itself. So each and every track, each and every driver, almost all, not all, each of the 22 drivers and the test drivers that are there, they have a mental map of each and every corner, each and every straight that is there. They know when to brake, when to turn, and they do it lap over lap over lap, with minor adjustments or betterments that they can do. So they do undergo a lot of stress. So the drivers themselves, there's some fun questions here about the drivers themselves. So what kind of stress do they undergo? This is quite common, most people know this. They undergo a lot of G-forces while in the cockpit. The amount of weight loss due to the stress, and the average heart rate and blood pressure while undergoing this on the race routine, and the error margins. So the answers are what kind of stress? So almost 5G at every corner, every lap. So that's quite a lot, which kind of takes a toll on your body. The losses that are recorded are up to 4 kilograms per race, on a minimum average of like 2.5 to 3 almost every single race on all drivers. Average heart rate and blood pressure, so 200 beats per minute is the average, and 50% higher BP than normal. And the error margins is like 1% on the driving line for every 1/10 of a second of laps. So that's done through a lot of studies, and they figured that out. What the driving line means is when you are racing, there are particular best lines that you can follow. And these lines in a straight are pretty much a given. You can go anywhere on the track. But when you're taking corners, there are different types of corners: a sharp one, a slow one, and all. So there are two that are demonstrated here. The green line in the both the diagrams are the fastest line that are there. With there are different drivers of slightly different driving techniques are going in and coming out. But on an average, this is considered scientifically the best lines that are possible. So the error margins I mentioned was on these driving lines. So if you are like there's even 1/10 of a second lapse, you miss the whole thing by 1%. And these things happen so fast that by the time you finish the line, it's a big error. So it could either mean you spectacularly kiss the corners and go in a very fine line, or you could end up in the walls.
Yep.
Yeah. Some new jargon that has come in over the past few years. One is KERS, that's Kinetic Energy Retrieval System, Recovery System, and the other one is DRS. These two are pretty new modern additions to the sport. The KERS basically, with like I mentioned, the engines have been toned down and brought down in their capacity as well as power output capacity. So basically, the KERS, what it does is it stores all the braking energy, all the heat that is generated, as well as the kinetic energy. It all stores it into a battery, and this particular energy is dispersed at the will of the driver at the press of a button. So there are two systems in place. One is where the driver decides when to release it, or the other system where whenever you go full throttle, the additional power is discharged. Till last year, the additional power that could be stored in the battery was around 80 bhp, 80 horsepower, and this year's guidelines they give up to 160. It's almost double. Till previous year, the drivers could decide when to use, especially when you are about to overtake someone. So you press the button and immediately you get a boost of that much thing. So you judiciously use it. But this time, with new additions and these things, they have made it available all through the track, and the drivers, all they need to do is whenever they press full throttle, they have the boost available. So it's to do with mainly the engine efficiency and all that. So just a fact here. Earlier, I think 3 years ago, the Formula One pit stops involved, the driver's car undergoing tire changes as well as refueling. But with the new FIA norms and fuel consumption as well as safety regulations, refueling no longer takes place. So there is no refueling during the race now. So the engines have been toned down to meet those standards now. So when the race starts, they go all 60, 70 laps without actually refueling. So they've become that much efficient now. So so that has kind of annoyed some fans, because it was the epitome of racing with the large engines, and nobody care about fuel consumption. But with these new regulations that has come into place, this has happened. So all these new advancements in technology that I mentioned, KERS and the DRS, they're primarily brought into the racing scene to give more, basically make it more exciting during overtakes and all that. Because since the cars are based on the FIA guideline, almost all cars are equally performant, and there's some driver judgment and certain, because at that level it's really difficult for like equally paced people to overtake one another. So it doesn't give that advantage, or these technologies give the drivers an additional aspect to play with to make it more exciting. So the sport is not just the sport as well. It's as with any sport, it's got its the appeal for the fans as well. So to keep it more exciting through the racing, right? So they have added these technological aspects. The DRS is basically a drag reduction system. So as if we go back to the picture of the car, So that DRS is installed at the back fin of the car, the back end. Basically, the whole design of the car is such that it generates a lot of drag, pushing the car down into the ground, meaning the car has to do a lot more work to go faster. So while you're overtaking this, while you're doing a corner or driving around in a normal race line, it's a good thing. But if you have some driver in your sights and you want to overtake, you would need that extra leeway to go past him. So what they've installed is a particular fin kind of mechanism which opens the black flap. So there is reduced drag and the car goes little bit more faster. So there are certain sections of the track and certain rules when this DRS can be used. So DRS can't be used all the time. You have to be in an overtaking position for you to be able to use it. So if you are behind a car within 1 second, that means you have a clear chance of overtaking at some corner. That's when this DRS activates. Okay. A typical race weekend, it's mainly spread over 3 weeks for the spectators. So Friday, so if you go for a race, to attend a race, you get to see Friday practice sessions. So this is where the drivers get accustomed to the track changes and all the new track, basically get accustomed to the track when they go to a venue. So there are practice rounds and they fine tune the car, setting up for the qualifiers for the next day. So Saturday is the day when they actually decide on the qualifying positions for the actual race. So every race is new, and everybody gets a chance to start first in the race. So the grid positions, so all the cars line up in the grid, and the grid positions are decided based on the qualifiers. So qualifiers happens in 3 quarters: Q1, Q2, and Q3. Okay, my typo mistake. Q1, Q2, and Q3. So each queues eliminate certain cars, and the final queue, whatever position you finish in, that's the position you start with. So since we have 22 cars this year, the first queue eliminates 6 cars. Next queue eliminates the next quarter eliminates the another 6 cars, and then the final one has 10 cars left. So the final 10 positions are decided that way. And then finally on the race day, all these cars line up and they do a practice lap, basically a warm-up lap, and then the race starts. The race usually lasts for under 2 hours. That's the guideline. So none of the races go for that. But in this 2 hours, they cover over 315 kilometers and the overall circuit with the number of laps there.
So Vishnu, the Q1, Q2, Q3 is a new thing, right? It's not that old in terms of...
Yeah, not that old, say 4 years, I guess, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
It's relatively, yes.
I remember a fun little factoid about this, that in the past, especially with drivers like Ayrton Senna, there was this almost dead rivalry to go out at the very, very last minute. So if, say, qualifiers ran for an hour, so you have, say, 1 hour to go out on the track and set the fastest time you could, Ayrton Senna would leave it to the very, very last minute to get out onto the track, because technically you were allowed to start a qualifying lap before the clock has ended. As long as you started, the qualifying lap would start. And he would go out and set the most ridiculously fast times at the very, very last minute. It would made it impossible for the other drivers to come in and set a faster time because he was going out so late, and or even trying to compete. And that sort of made qualifying incredibly fun in itself. But the Q1, Q2, Q3 thing is to make it a little more fair, avoid accidents, better safety. But a little bit of the fun has gone out of it now.
Yeah, but the last minute thing still holds. That still holds, but it's between the top drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're all on the track, and as the clock ticks down to like less than a minute, so usually a lap takes a minute 4 to cover the whole thing, 4-5 kilometers. So as soon as it goes down the 60-second marker, everybody starts off almost. Right. There are some must-watch movies for all fans out there, or who want to know a little bit about the about racing, and it's covered very well in these two films or documentaries. One is Rush. This recently we saw an ad on TV. Remember everything we're talking about, and then Senna. Okay.
Yeah.
Both,
Both phenomenal movies. Senna is actually really, really great. Rush is a good fun movie. Not as accurate as Senna, but they're both great movies.
Yeah.
And both of these are semi-documentaries, right? I mean, it's not like watching Fast and Furious types. These are one of them, I think, is an Oscar-nominated documentary, right?
Senna is a documentary. It's a live documentary of Ayrton Senna. The first movie, The Rush. Rush one is based on a particular incident that happened in the 70s between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. So it's about those two drivers and the rivalry between them, off track, on track. It's a little more dramatized, but it's mainly on that particular incident.
Yeah, Senna is, yeah, it's a documentary for sure, but it almost feels like, like it was shot as a single movie with Senna as the actor in it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the next race is this weekend. It's in Italy, Imola.
Imola.
So what's a good place in the city to go watch an F1 race?
Good place to watch. Let's see. There was this. We used to go to this extreme sports bar initially when I used to hang out with a group of friends when we used to watch it. And they used to have this cubicle kind of setup, right, where they have a big screen and you can sit and watch super shots. But now, I think over the years, people had started getting large TV screens in their homes. So this year onwards, obviously, I'll be watching in my place. But in general, my friends, a couple of my friends used to have a TV in their PC and used to set up, and that's how we used to watch it. And it's great fun to watch it on a large screen. And I've myself gone to two of these races, one in Malaysia, Japan, and the first Indian Grand Prix that happened in 2011. So there's nothing you can compare watching it live to TV, but both are exciting enough because on TV you are fed with continuous information, which is not that obvious on the tracks. So you have to kind of keep watching the TV screens as well to get an idea. But then the experience of the car going in front of you and the whole the race crowd and all this yelling and all that, it's really good fun to be on the track as well.
Deafening sound of cars.
Yeah, definitely. And the TV doesn't do justice to one thing. I feel. I mean, they kind of produce the audio sound of the engine, but what they don't produce are the misfires and the gear changes. They are deafening. There are like explosions going on there on the track, especially when you are near a corner and the car is slowing down, like the 4 seconds we spoke about, right? So it's coming at like really high speed and then slowing down. You can hear those knocks on the engine, tuck, 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 and it's really loud. It's as if someone's banging on it with a hammer. It's that loud, and you feel it. Right, guys, that's all pretty much I have.
Thanks, Vishnu.
Thanks, Vishnu.
Thanks, Vishnu. Pretty interesting.